Hi students. This video is really going to test your knowledge on chapters 5 and 6. I've been telling you to read those two chapters for the past 2 days. So let's take a look and see. Let's get started. Okay, so this slide right here, I have included 3 pictures that relate to what went on in chapter 5. If you want to, you can pause the video and quickly skim through chapter 5 and see if you can figure out what these pictures represent. So we've been talking a lot about how the author develops point of view. And in The Giver by Lois Lowry, and just like other books, the author develops point of view through the use of dialogue with other characters, conversations, through the inner thoughts of the character as well as the actions of the character. I'm going to quickly read this part. This is a very important part from chapter 5, and I hope you really understand it. It says stirrings. He had heard the word before. He remembered that there was a reference to the stirrings in the book of rules, though he didn't remember what it said. And now and then the speaker mentioned it. Attention, a reminder that stirrings must be reported in order for treatment to take place. He had always ignored that announcement because he didn't understand it, and it had never seemed to apply to him anyway. He ignored, as most citizens did, many of the commands and reminders read by the speaker. Do I have to report it? He asked his mother. She laughed. You did, in the dream telling. That's enough. But what about the treatment? The speaker says. That treatment must take place. Jonas felt miserable. Just when the ceremony was about to happen, his ceremony of 12, would he have to go away someplace for treatment just because of a stupid dream? Now you have some educated questions for this section. Well, I can definitely see where Lois Lowry uses dialogue right here in this section where Jonas is talking to his mother. He's kind of embarrassed and a little bit afraid to even admit that he's had these stirrings. And then right here where the author tells us that Jonas felt miserable, that is Jonas's kind of his internal feelings, and he's wondering to himself, his thoughts are whether or not he will actually have to go away for this treatment for what they're calling stirrings. What do you think stirrings are similar to in your life? Most of you are adolescents and you're hitting something called puberty. Does this sound similar to that? Let's look at another part of chapter 5. It says Jonas brightened. He knew about the pills. His parents both took them each morning, and some of his friends did. He knew. Once he had been heading off to school with Asher, both of them on their bikes, when Asher's father had called from the dwelling doorway. You forgot your pills, Asher. Your pill, Asher. Asher had groaned good naturedly, turned his bike, and ridden back while Jonas waited. So right here where it says Jonas brightened, Jonas is kind of feeling that there's it this whole thing about stirring, it's okay. It's something that's just kind of natural and everybody is eventually going to get it in the community. So he starts to feel not so bad about himself. And let's take a look at this other part. It says, then, in the same way that his own dwelling slipped away behind him as he rounded a corner on his bicycle, the dream slipped away from his thoughts. Very briefly, a little guiltily, he tried to grasp it back, but the feelings had disappeared, the stirrings were gone. Well, right here, it shows that Lois Lowry is definitely using some inner thoughts and some actions. Jonas is trying to hold on to this feeling. It must be a really good feeling that he's trying to hold on to, but the community has kind of eliminated this feeling. Why do you think so? Moving on to chapter 6. Take a look at these pictures. Hopefully, these pictures will jog some memories for you as to what chapter 6 is all about. If you want to, you can pause the video here and skim through chapter 6 before moving on. This part from chapter 6 is an extremely important part, and it definitely shows how Lois Lowry is developing Jonas's point of view. It says, now, father sat beside mother in the audience. Jonas could see them applauding dutifully as the nines, one by one, wheeled their new bicycles, each with its gleaming name tag attached to the back. From the stage, he knew that his parents cringed a little as he did when Fritz, who lived in the dwelling next door to theirs, received his bike and almost immediately bumped into the podium with it. Fritz was a very awkward child who had been summoned for chastisement again and again. His transgressions were small ones, always. Shoes on the wrong feet, schoolwork misplaced, failure to study adequately for a quiz, but each error reflected negatively on his parents' guidance. So this part definitely shows that Jonas is thinking about kind of like Lois always expressing Jonas's inner thoughts. He's thinking about what his parents are thinking about this next door neighbor who is constantly doing things that are against like the community rules. So this is definitely showing Jonas's inner thoughts and how he feels about his community and his community members. This part right here from chapter 6, it says, I heard about a guy who was absolutely certain he was going to be assigned engineer. Asher muttered as they ate, and instead they gave him sanitation laborer. He went out the next day, jumped into the river, swam across, and joined the next community he came to. Nobody ever saw him again. Jonas laughed. Somebody made that story up, Ash. He said, my father said he heard that story when he was a 12. But Asher wasn't reassured. He was eyeing the river where it was visible behind the auditorium. I can't even swim very well, he said. My swimming instructor said that I don't have the right boyishness or something. This part definitely shows that Jonas is starting to question his community. He is very, very aware that everything that we hear is not always true. Lois Lowry allows us to realize that about Jonas through his dialogue, his conversation that he's having with Asher. So don't forget that the author can develop point of view through dialogue, through characters' actions, through the characters' inner thoughts being revealed explicitly, the author just coming out and kind of telling you what the character is thinking and how the character is feeling. So make sure you are paying close attention to that as you continue reading. Enjoy chapter 7. This is really, it's really getting to the climax now.